Akeidat Yitzchak, Parak Lamed Aleph. We're holding in the middle of the Parak. We're continuing the discussion about Akeidat Yitzchak. So we just mentioned last week that what happened was that Yitzchak at the Mizbeach, whatever happened, either because he was very scared, so his neshama left him and he died, or he saw something that he wasn't supposed to see, his neshama left him and he died, and then he came back to life, and we saw that Yitzchak saw that there's going to be the idea of Tchias HaMeisim, and Yitzchak said the bracha of Baruch Atah Hashem Mechayei HaMeisim, the second bracha of Shemona Esrei, which, as we're saying, is Mistam is Keneged Yitzchak. If the first bracha is Keneged Avram, the second bracha is Keneged Yitzchak, it makes a lot of sense. Okay, so up to the words of Zechariah Omer. Rabbi Zechariah says, Oisei ha'ayil shenivra bein ha'shmoshes. That ram which was created bein ha'shmoshes, meaning it's alluding to the Mishnah that we've had multiple times. The Mishnah in the 5th paragraph of Ashes of Yitzchak that says that there were 10 things that were created Erev Shabbos bein ha'shmoshes. So we're saying that ram, the ram we're going to see that Avraham Avinu brings by Akeidat Yitzchak, that ram was the ram that was created Erev Shabbos bein ha'shmoshes. Hayarot uvala hiskarev Tachat Yitzchak. It was running to go to Avraham Avinu because it wanted to be brought instead of Yitzchak. And the Satan was standing and mashtaisai. There's another case of mastin. Mashtaisai means like it's confusing it, not letting it get to where it wants to go. Or mastin is like it's accusing against it, I guess like in Shemayim or something to try to stop it from doing what it wants to do. In order to nullify or neutralize the Korban of Avraham Avinu. The Satan didn't want that the Avraham Avinu should makriv this ram instead of Yitzchak. What did the Satan do? The Satan caused that this ayil will be nechaz, it will be captured or trapped with its two horns between the trees. It's trapped between the trees on its two horns. So the pasuk, this Avraham say no vayar. Avraham lifted his eyes and he saw v'hinei ayil. And it says it was trapped in the shrubbery from its horns. So you see the Medrash is saying that the Satan caused that to happen because the Satan didn't want Avraham Avinu to be mark of it. What did this ram do? And it's interesting, like from this story, it sounds like the ayil has some sort of like bechira, and the ayil decided it wants to be brought as a korban, so it's going to fight the Satan and do whatever it can. It's an interesting idea. The ram stretched out its hands towards the talent of Avraham Avinu, and as the Radal says, as if to say to Avraham Avinu, please take me, save me. Hibit Avraham v'ro'es ayil. Avraham Avinu looked, and he saw this ram. And he took the ram, and he disentangled it, Tachas Yitzchak, and he brought it as a korban instead of Yitzchak. Shenamar, as it says in the pasuk, Avram went, he took the ram, Tachas B'nai, and he brought it up as an oila instead of his son, Tachas B'nai, instead of Yitzchak. It's an interesting point over here. The word Tachas in Lashon HaKodesh has multiple meanings. One meaning of the word Tachas is because. For example, Tachas means because you didn't listen, you didn't work for Hashem. Tachas means because, in some contexts. In other contexts, the word Tachas means underneath. And you put something Tachas, means you put it under the table, right? Then, or yeah, you could say like that. Or Tachas can mean instead of, right? So the vulgar meaning of the word Tachas in modern Hebrew, my understanding of it is that it comes from Yiddish, but that comes from the Lashon HaKodesh word Tachas, meaning underneath, meaning the part of your body that you're sitting on when you're sitting, right? So it's underneath you. So in Yiddish it became a word tuchis, and then from that came the word in Ivrit. That's my understanding of the etymology, but I don't think it has that meaning in Lashon HaKodesh. Could be mistaken, but so over here it says Tachas B'nai, that Avraham Avinu was makriv the ram Tachas B'nai, and I translated it as instead of Yitzchak, Tachas B'nai.
How else would you translate?
Well, the Malbim in Parshas Vayera says a huge chiddush. He wants to translate it differently. He wants to say Tachas B'nai means underneath Yitzchak. How so? So he says like this. As we mentioned before, that Yitzchak, when he was on the Mizbech, he died, and his neshama went up to Shemayim. So the Sifrei Kabbalah speak about how when Yitzchak's neshama went up to Shemayim, so the Malach Michal, like the guardian angel of Klal Yisrael, which is a whole sugya on its own, but the Malach Michal took the neshama of Yitzchak and was makriv it on the Mizbech in the Shemayim. Whatever exactly these ideas mean, but that's what the Sifrei Kabbalah say. So the Malbim says that Yitzchak was brought up on the Mizbeach up in Shemayim, and underneath him on the Mizbeach down here on the earth, so there Avraham Avinu was makriv the ram. So the ram was brought underneath Yitzchak, meaning Yitzchak was brought and in the Mizbeach of the Shemayim, and the ram was brought underneath him in the Mizbeach down here in the Aderet. Now it's also mashma from the Malbim that because the way he starts off his Zvar, he says that, and Yitzchak's body remained on the Mizbeach. Right? So I wasn't sure if the Malbim means to say that Avraham Avinu was makriv the ram on top of Yitzchak, like when we talk about the physical body of Yitzchak and the physical ram that's being brought on the Mizbeach. Does it mean that Avraham Avinu took the ram and put it on top of Yitzchak, who was still on the Mizbeach? In which case, one second. In which case, it would mean that Yitzchak was underneath the ram in the physical aspect, but in the spiritual aspect, the ram was underneath Yitzchak.
No, physical aspect, but heaven also would be.
What? No, if
ram, and then it's Tachat Bina was always the Yitzchak on top.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Physically.
No, that's what I'm asking. Because either because who said we don't find anywhere. It just sounds funny that the Malbim would be saying that. What did Avraham Avinu do? He picked up Yitzchak, put the ram on the Mizbeach, and then took Yitzchak and put him back on top.
On the ram.
Right. And that way the ram is underneath Yitzchak. Is that what the Malbim means to say? Or he means to say?
It's also kind of strange to think that he would dump a ram on top of his son.
Right. And the other way of saying it would be that, no, the ram was on top of Yitzchak. So really Yitzchak physically was underneath the ram, but the ram was underneath Yitzchak because Yitzchak's neshama was brought in the Mizbeach and the Shemayim, and the ram was brought in the Mizbeach over here.
There wasn't room for them to be side by side?
Could be there's room for them to be side by side. You're right. I didn't think of that option. Maybe it was side by side. Right.
So just like Am Yisrael, when Rashi brings the pshat of Tachas Har at Sinai, Rashi says Kipshuto. That means next to the mountain. And Chazal say, literally Tachas.
Right, Chazal say it means
Tachas means under the mountain. So
Kofalei Harkagigis.
So Tachas could also be next to it.
Oh, Tachas could also be next to you, saying, yeah.
Because of that,
Tachas.
then they're the Pashut.
So you're supporting Mr. Dove's theory that they're both next to each other on the Mizbech. It's an interesting idea. Right, let's go back. Rabbi Berachia Omer. Rabbi Berachia says, Allah reich nichayach shel ayil, the pleasant smell of the korban of the ram went up lefnei chisei hakavod, in front of the chair of glory in front of Hashem, v'orav loy, and it was as sweet to him as kireich nichayach shel Yitzchak, as the pleasant smell of Yitzchak. So Hashem Kibiyachol enjoyed the smell of Avraham Avinu being makriv the ram as if Avraham Avinu was makriv Yitzchak himself. The Radal adds three words over here. A few words over here. Pasha Kadosh Baruch Hu Yad Yaminai. Kadosh Baruch Hu stretched out his right hand, which is an expression we've had multiple times over here in Pirkei D'Belezer, which means that Hashem swore. V'nishba, and he swore, L'varachlei b'zeh ha'olam u'olam haba. Hashem swore to bless, to bless Yitzchak in this world and in the world to come. Shneimar, as it says in the pasuk, Kivorech avorechacha, because I shall surely bless you. V'harbo arbe'ez zaracha kechaychei hashemayim, and I shall surely multiply your seed or your descendants like the stars of the heavens. The Medrash starts in this 1 second. I shall surely bless you in this world. And I'm going to multiply your descendants in Olam Haba. The Radal has a problem with this girsa. The Radal's problem is that it says the bracha is Ba'olam Hazeh. Is talking about Olam Haba. That sounds like the harbe arbe didn't happen in Olam Hazeh. The Jews didn't have this bracha of multitudes in Olam Hazeh, which he says the Chara is not true. So how does that work? So he changes the Girsa, the Radal, according to to be in consonance with the Girsa of the Yalkut Shemaini, which he says the Gra also has this Girsa that is supposed to read it like this: Kivoreich ba'olam hazeh, avorechacha ba'olam haba, harba ba'olam hazeh, arba ezaracha ba'olam haba. So that there's a bracha in Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba, and then there's a harbe, a ribui. What's it called? The multiplication of descendants both in Olam Hazeh and in Olam Haba, and it makes sense because in both of them there's double lashon. And there's a whole shtickle Torah, I don't remember it by heart. Chaval, I should have looked it up. From Rabbi Yehuda Fateya, the Talmud of the Ben Ishchai, big Mukubal. He has a sefer called Minchat Yehuda on Chumash, where he explains. It was a very simple vort, it was like a logical vort. How it is that it's for sure true that the bracha of the multiplication of Avraham Avinu's descendants actually did happen. It was a simple cheshbon. I don't remember exactly how it worked.
In a certain period in time, it happened.
Even you can see it nowadays.
Or see it nowadays.
It was something like.
But nowadays, the Jews are tiny.
No, that's his question, and his answer is.
What's his question?
Nowadays the Jews are tiny, so how could it be that there's a bracha that they're going to be the multitudes? So his answer was it was some pashut cheshbon that relative to everyone else who lived at the same time as Avraham Avinu, there's way more Jews than are descendants of everyone else. I don't remember exactly how. I should have looked it up, but yeah. What were you gonna ask?
You said this bracha is probably going on Yitzchak. Why? And not Abraham. I always thought the pashtus was on Abraham, and I don't know if I have a raya, but I remember reading that Kechochrei Hashamayim is the bracha given to Abraham.
You're right. No, you're right. I'm sorry, I misread it. Pashtus is going on Avraham because the pasuk. It's really the pasuk says Yan Asher. Lashon of the pasuk.
And it's. I don't exactly understand why, but it's his test, not Yitzchak's test.
Right.
Even though we talk about it being also Yitzchak being the one who.
Right. Hashem is speaking to Avraham Avinu, not to Yitzchak. I don't know why I said the Pashtus is that it's talking about Yitzchak. So you're completely right. Whatever. We know that the bracha anyways ends up going from Avram to Yitzchak, but that's a separate issue. Fine. Right there. Rabbi Chanina ben Toisa says, that ram that was created Erev Shabbos ben Hashmashas that Avram Avinu was makriv as a korban, nothing was created from that ram that went to waste. Meaning everything from that ram was used for something else or became an important thing on its own right. For example, says the Medrash, Efroi shel ayil, the ashes of that ram, hu yusoid shel gabe hamizbeach hapnimi. The ashes of the ram that Avraham Avinu was makriv instead of Yitzchak, that is the foundation upon which the mizbeach hapnimi, the inner mizbeach, meaning the golden one that's in the that's in the holier part of the Beis Hamikdash, upon which they bring the Keteres, the Mizbeach HaPnimi, the golden Mizbeach. The foundation of that is the ashes of this ayil. Shneimar, as it says in the pasuk, v'chiper aharon al karnei sov achas bashana. That pasuk is talking about Yom Kippur. And it says, "V'chiper Aaron al karnei sov achas bashana." Aaron is going to be mechaper. He's going to get an atonement on the karnei sov, which pasuk on the pasuk is. It's talking about the horns of the mizbeach, which are like these things that stick out on the corners of the mizbeach. That's pasuk shot. But we're darshaning it to mean the horns as an allusion to the horns of this ram, which Avraham Avinu was makriv instead of Yitzchak. So Aaron is mechaper on these rams. Achas bashana, one time in the year. The Radal says that this is also an allusion to the fact that Yom Kippur, that the day of Akeidat Yitzchak was Yom Kippur. So that's why we're bringing a pasuk that has to do with Yom Kippur. So the ashes of the ram became the Yisoid Shal Gabe Mizbeach HaPnimi. And we're going to see that all the different other parts of the ram were used for other things. But the Radal points out another interesting idea, that the Gemara in Zvachim, Daf Samech Beis Aleph, the Gemara says that the ashes of Yitzchak, which we said last week, whenever the Gemara or Chazal refer to the ashes of Yitzchak, it's really referring to the ashes of the aisle, not the ashes literally of Yitzchak, but the ashes of the aisle, which represent as if it was Yitzchak. Right? So the Gemara in Zvachim says that the ashes of Yitzchak, that is the place of the Mizbeach. And the Gemara is talking about over there, not the Mizbeach HaPnimi, but the Mizbeach HaChitzin, the outer Mizbeach, the Karper Mizbeach, the big one with all the animals slaughtered, not the Ketayros. So that seems to be arguing with what Medrash over here is saying, that the ashes of Yitzchak is the Yisoid of the Mizbeach HaPnimi. Over there it says it's the Mizbeach HaChitzin. So the Radal points out that it seems to be there's a shtickle machlokes over here. And he notes that earlier we said in Perek Chav Tes that what is the Pirkei Eliezer itself said a different pshat in what the Yisoid of the Mizbeach HaChitzon is. Pirkei Eliezer said that the place where Avram Avinu's blood dripped when he had his bris milah, so upon that is where the Beis Hamikdash was, where the Mizbeach of the Beis Hamikdash was built. So Pirkei Eliezer l'shitosai didn't want to say that the ashes of Yitzchak is the Yisoid of the Mizbeach HaChitzon, because it already said that the place that Avram Avinu's blood dripped is the Yisoid of the Mizbeach HaChitzon. That's the word that the Radal says over here. Gidav shel ayil, the sinews of the ram, hem asara, which happened to be 10. For some reason we know that there's 10 sinews. Keneged asar nevolim el kinar shaya David menagin behem. It corresponds to the 10 nevolim, which the Radal changes the gears to nimin, 10 hairs or 10 strings of the kinar, of the harp that David HaMelech used to play. So the sinews of the ayil became the strings of the harp. We spoke about the harp of David HaMelech that had 10 strings earlier in Perek Yutes. Oirei shel ayil, the skin of the ram, hu ezer maslav shel Eliyahu. That was the belt of Eliyahu Hanavi's pants. Shinamar, it says in the pasuk, "Vayomru elav ish baal." When they were trying to describe how Eliyahu Hanavi looks, so "Vayomru elav," they said, "Ish baal seyar." He was a hairy man. Ve'ezer or ozur b'masnov, and a leather belt is belted around his around his what's it called, his waist. So that's how they described Eliyahu Hanavi. So that leather belt, the leather came from this ram. Shtei karnav shel ayil shoiforos. The two horns of the ram were shoiforos. They were shofars. They were, ritual horn blowing horns or whatever that were used or going to be used in Jewish history. Bishal smal, the left horn, nishma kolei shel kodesh baruch hu al har Sinai. With the left horn, I added the word shel. I think it makes sense, but. With the left horn, we heard the voice it was heard the voice of a Kadosh Baruch Hu on Har Sinai. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, "Vahi kol hashofar." The pasuk says that it was the voice of the shofar. So it says the shofar tells us that it was the shofar of something that was special or mentioned earlier in Tanakh. So we understand that it was the horn from that ram that Avram Avinu was making instead of Yitzchak. V'keren shel yamin. And the right, so that was the left horn. What about the right horn? The right horn, hu gadol min asmal. It was bigger. It's a bigger horn than the left one. V'asid l'skayabay la'asid lavay b'kibutz shel galuyos. And that horn, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or maybe Mashiach or Eliyahu Navi, is destined to blow in that horn in the future to gather up the ingathering of the exiles. Shinamar, it says in the pasuk, "V'haya b'yayim ahu yitokab b'shofar gadol." On that day, in the day the Mashiach comes, yitokab b'shofar gadol. He will blow with the great shofar. So that's referring to the idea that when Mashiach comes, they're going to blow a great shofar, and that shofar, we're saying, is the right horn of the ram that Avram Avinu was makriv instead of Yitzchak. Before we do the last line over here, there's an interesting shaila in the Rishonim that they ask about this. What? What?
Maybe we spoke about it.
Yeah. Why what?
Why that aisle?
Why that aisle? We didn't speak about why. We're bringing psukim that shows us that
why so special? It's just supposed to be some kind of a wow.
It could be the point is like this, that the Medrash started off by saying that every piece of that ram that Kadosh Baruch Hu created, Erev Shabbos Ben Shmashos, that Avram Avinu was makriv, so every piece of it was used for something. It was lo yotza mimenu davar levatala. So it could be that's the reason, that's the significance of it. I'm not sure beyond that exactly. I mean, I'm sure.
From the angle that
I'm sure
the animal is not a complete batash case.
Right.
So I'm asking a different question. Why?
Well, what's the significance?
Why is the animal so important that we use it for the not Mashiach?
So each thing you would probably have to go through and try to figure out what's the special connection between Eliyahu and Navi and the Isle of Yitzchak. You can draw parallels, let's say, between Eliyahu and Navi bringing makriv the korbanos that we had in this week's Haftarah, and Avraham Avinu being makriv Yitzchak on the Mizbech. I don't know. I'm sure they discuss it. I didn't see any sources. But the Ramban has a very technical question. This is in Parshas Yisro. It says in the pasuk by Har Sinai. It says B'msheich hayovel hema ya'alav v'har. There's a pasuk Perek Yates pasuk Yud Gimel Parshas Yisro. Right? The pasuk says that no one's allowed to go up to the mountain to Har Sinai, but when B'msheich hayovel hema ya'alav v'har. When the yovel is drawn, so then you can go up on the mountain. What does it mean when the yovel is drawn? So Rashi says, what's the yovel? Yovel hu shofar shel ayil. A yovel is the sounding of a shofar of an ayil, of a ram, right? And then Rashi says, "V'shofar shel Eliyahu shel Yitzchak." This shofar that was blown at Har Sinai is the shofar of the ram of Yitzchak that we're talking about over here. Similar to what we're talking about over here. Our Medrash darshan it from the pasuk of Vayi Kol HaShofar. Rashi is darshaning it from the pasuk of B'msher HaYovel. Rashi says HaYovel means Da Yovel, Da Shofar, which is Da Shofar from the Ale of Yitzchak. Ayil of Yitzchak. The Ramban asks the kasha like this. Ramban Parshas Yisro. The Ramban says, one second. What are we talking about over here? We're talking about the ram that Avram Avinu brought as an oila instead of Yitzchak. Yeah? What's the halacha of a Korban Olah? What do you do with an oila?
Completely burn it.
You completely burn it, yeah?
Gidim and all.
Gidim and all. So how could there be anything left? It was completely burnt.
The ashes. Even the ashes are not used for anything.
Uh-huh.
The ashes they have to spread. Right?
So this is the Ramban's kasha. This is the Ramban's kasha in Chumash. And
there was another, I was using the parts of the animal.
what?
If you're supposed to be another, what
Yeah.
are you doing with the parts?
So this is Ramban's kasha. So Ramban says like this. Ramban says, maybe you'll tell me that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took the ashes of whatever happened with the ram, and then recreated all the things that used to exist from those ashes, and then everything was back to normal after Avraham Avinu was makriv. The Ramban says, maybe you could say such a word. And then I found that Rabbeinu Bechaye in Parshas Yisro, as well as Rabbeinu Bechaye in his Pirush on Mishnah in Mesachos Avos, he also says this. He brings Ramban's question and he says this answer. And the Taz.
Well, what was the base for the question, for the answer?
No, but I guess the Ramban thought that this was such a strong question that it deserves that we can say such a big chiddush that there was an extra nace that Hashem took the ashes and recreated all the things. I guess that's the Ramban's rationale.
I was actually thinking of something, similar to that, because think of an isle that could, you wouldn't be living for 2,000, 4,000 years.
The what?
The same isle couldn't be
Yeah.
here, until the
Okay, but that doesn't.
day.
That's not machayev. That this the same answer. You can say in other answers that'll answer what you're saying.
He's gonna kill the animal and then fight it again.
Right. So this is what the Ramban says, and it seems like the Ramban says it like Ulai. Rabbeinu Bechaye brings down this same answer and question and answer. He goes like with this answer. The Taz he has a sefer on Chumash called Divrei David. So the Taz brings down the Ramban's kasha, and he brings down the Ramban's answer. He says, even though the Ramban writes ulai, maybe, but the Taz says it's for sure. This is for sure the answer. This is the emes, and there's no question about it. That's what the Taz says. The Taz. Now, the Mizrahi, sefer Mizrahi on Chumash, so he brings down the Ramban's kasha, and he has like a whole shot teretz that he wants to say. The Mizrahi wants to say that there's a halacha that certain parts of the animal are the main, let's say the main meat and flesh of an animal when you bring it as an olah. So that's like the ikar korban, and then you put it on the mizbeach, and like that gets burnt and everything. Right? Now there's certain parts of the animal that the Mishnah Mesachas Zvachim Perak Tes Mishnah Hey says that lechatchila you're supposed to burn those things with the animal, but there's a difference between these parts of the body and other parts of the body that the meat and the flesh, if it for somehow falls off the mizbeach before it's fully burnt, so the halacha is you're supposed to go and put it back on the mizbeach. But these parts of the body, if it falls off the mizbeach, since it's not really the ikar korban, it's only like dragged in, secondary to the meat and the flesh. So then you don't have to put it back on the mizbeach. Right? Pirshu lo yalu. If it fell off of the mizbeach, you don't have to put it back. What are those? Tzemer, shiburesh kvosim. The tzemer, the wool of at the heads of a keves, of a lamb. V'hatzamois, bones, v'gidim, and the sinews, v'karnaim, and the horns. So the Mizrahi wants to answer that what happened was Avraham Avinu was makriv the aisle, and let's say the horn fell off of the mizbeach for whatever something happened. The horn fell off the mizbeach. You're not mechuyev to put the horn back on the mizbeach because that's not the ikar korban. It's not the meat and the flesh. So he left it there, and the horn was able to last forever. And the same thing with the gidin and whatever. That's the Mizrahi style. But that's what the Mizrahi says.
What about the simple answer that you used last week?
That what?
So it's like before the Matan Torah. I don't know, like the halachas of the oil and everything. It's not like it was a korban.
You want to say that?
Kill, that's it.
You want to say, yeah, we don't know exactly what he was makriv and what he wasn't makriv. A similar idea. So he only put up the meat, he never even bothered to
put it. Says that based on the halacha.
Yeah, I hear. You want to say it was a different type of korban oil. And this type of korban oil that he didn't require you to burn all these parts of the animal. It could be.
He said it was an oil.
No, the pasuk says. Well, the Maisa, the Pirush you have on the bottom, the Bais HaGodol, he says, I don't understand why all these great rabbis, all these Ge'onim are discussing this question of the Ramban. He says, to me, the answer is very pashut. This medrash doesn't literally mean that, let's say, the horn of the aisle of Yitzchak was blown at Har Sinai. It doesn't literally mean that. No, he says that the skin of the aisle was the belt of Eliyahu. It doesn't. He said can't literally mean that. It says like who gave it to Eliyahu that he should use it as a belt? Who gave the sinews to David Melech that he should use it to turn it into a harp? Where did he get it from? It lasted for 2,000 years, whatever. Then somehow he got it. It's mechtese. So he says that of course it's talking about some inyanim api Kabbalah or whatever that we don't exactly understand, but it doesn't literally mean it. The Maral and Gur Aryeh also, he brings the Ramban's kasha and he says the same thing that Iyav Shalom a Davar Kipshuta, we can't understand it Kipshuta, but this is what it's saying, and there's some sort of Kabbalistic inyanim that it's alluding to over here that we're just going to have to accept that there's something more to the text than we have. What are you saying?
It would be the same question, how could this aisle be alive at the time of Abraham?
What if it was created from the time of...
Yeah, it's created 1,948 approximately years before Abraham shechted it.
Right.
That's all. Meaning, the answer is a very good answer. Literally.
Doesn't literally mean.
These are.
Well, we also have the same kind of idea.
And then you have that.
We spoke about the Levias and Barichos last year.
This is, I think it's still different.
There are people. I think it was Rashba. We said that the Rashba says that Leviathan is not literal. It refers to like some sort of seichel, the Klal Yisrael, that B'Moisei Mashiach we're going to have certain hasaga of understanding of the bria that we don't have nowadays. But I think it was the Rashba. I don't remember. I would have to look back at our notes when we talked about Brias Olam. But I don't know. Now let's do the last line over here, and we'll start the next parak also afterwards. Rabbi Yitzchak says, "Hakol loy neitzar ela b'schus hishtachavaya." Everything in the world was created in the merit of hishtachavaya, of bowing down. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, "Rememu Hashem Elokeinu." Hashem is, very great. V'yishtachavo l'hadei maglav. We're going to bow down to His footstool. So Hashem is very great, and we're bowing down to His footstool because everything comes from the fact that we're going to bow down to Hashem. That the whole world was created from that. But the Radal says that this line in the Medrash, he wants to say that it's not from Pirkei Eliezer. It's added on later on because it's like no shaykhus. It's like, where's it coming from? What? I don't know, but the Bayis Agadol says that there could be someone added it in to allude to a certain medrash in Bereshis Rabbah, which we're going to read to you in a second. And if you look at the whole medrash, you'll see that it actually does have shaykhus to what we were talking about. The medrash is in Bereshis Rabbah, Parsha Nun Vav. It says like it's Omer Rabbi Yitzchak. Yitzchak said, "Hakol b'schus hishtachavaya." Everything was created in the schus of bowing down. Avram, where do we see that? So historically, we're going to see different parts where things would happen because of the schus of bowing down. Avraham lechazer mahar Maria el b'schus hishtachavaya. Avram Avinu was not zeicha to turn from Akeidat Yitzchak, from offering Yitzchak, I guess, with Yitzchak intact. Rather, he only was able to do it with the schus of bowing down, because it says in the pasuk, "V'nishtachaveh v'nashuva aleichem." When Avram and Yitzchak left Yishmael and Eliezer behind, and they were going to go up the mountain themselves, so they said, "We're going to go up the mountain, we're going to bow, and we're going to come back." So since they went to bow, so then they had a special schus so that Yitzchak was saved. Yisrael and Nigalu el b'schus hishtachavaya. Klal Yisrael, when they were exiled to Egypt, they were only redeemed because of the schus of bowing down. Shneimar, says the pasuk, "Vayamein ha'am." The nation believed them. The pasuk in Parsha Shmos, right when they first heard that Moshe Rabbeinu said that he's going to redeem them, "Vayiktu vayishachavu," and they prostrated themselves and they bowed down. The Torah itself was only given in the honor, in the merit of bowing down. Shneimar v'yishachavisem merachik. By Har Sinai it says they're going to bow down from afar. Chana, right at the beginning of the Sefer Shmuel, she only merited to have children in the schus that she bowed down to Hashem. She never vayishachavu sham laHashem because they were oila l'regel, and then she bowed down over there and they went to the Mishkan. Hagoliyos enam iskanses ala b'schus hishtachavaya. The exiles are going to be only going to come for the ingathering in the merit of bowing down. Shem says the pasuk. You talk about shofar gadol. On that day, they're going to blow the great shofar. The people who are lost are going to come from Eretz Ashur. And the people who are pushed away from Eretz Yisrael. And they're going to come and they're going to bow down to Hashem in the holy mountain. So you see that the whole zechus, the people are going to merit to come when by the geula is going to be in the zechus of bowing down. And the last line, the Medrash says, "Beis Hamikdash le'nivra ela b'schus hishtachavaya." Beis Hamikdash was only built in the schus of bowing down. Hashem says, "Remu Hashem Elokeinu v'yishachav l'har kodshei." We're going to make Hashem exalted, and we're going to bow to Him in Har Kodshei, in the mountain of His holy mountain. Right? So you see that all these things happen only in the schus of hishtachavaya. So what does this have to do with our parak? Or our medrash, because it brought down the same pasuk of Vayam who you talk about shofar gadol. So then here it makes sense that the medrash should bring another drush that brings down the same pasuk that is not talking necessarily about a case. Just like let's talk about something else. Okay.